East is a region troubled by war, terrorism, weak and failed states, and civil unrest. But how did it get this way? The map of today's Middle East was mostly drawn after the First World War, the war that planted many of the seeds of conflict that still plague Israel, Palestine, Iraq, Syria, and even Iran today.
How's it going, everybody? It is October, and I got to fix my name. I just realized. That my name is still holding over from Friday's Funny of Onlyland. So if you haven't watched that, you're like, what the hell did it say AlphaWarrior for? You got to go watch Badlands Media over there on Rumble and tune into Friday Night Show. October 26, 2025. This is the Middle East in 20 minutes-ish. We're going to try to catch up over the last 2 weeks, so it'll probably go a little bit longer than normal. So without further ado, let's bring on my co-host, Ghost. Brother, a lot has happened in the last 2 weeks. Where are we firing off from?
Dude, what's up, brother? And yeah, Alpha, today's not going to be a 20-minute show because we missed last week because I was in the woods with my kids. But so much has happened in the past 2 weeks. And so I'm not going to spend a ton of time recapping 2 weeks ago because I'm sure a lot of your audience has probably read up, like followed all that stuff. I do want to hit on a few points that probably aren't as covered because I try to zig where people zag when the Middle East becomes like the focus of the headlines. So if you would, I did not share my screen, but let me share my screen. So 2 weeks ago, 2 Mondays ago, we had, well, actually, let's start with this one. 2 Saturdays ago, we had that moment with Kushner and Wickoff and Ivanka Trump, Steve Wickoff, Jared Kushner, Ivanka Trump in Hashid Square in Israel. That moment where Wickoff said Trump's name and everyone applauded, and he said Netanyahu's name and everybody booed. And everyone focuses on the wrong stuff, Alpha, when this stuff happens. Everyone is like, look at Kushner and Wickoff shilling so hard for Israel. What do you expect them to do in this moment? Like, they are trying to bait Israel into going along with this peace deal. I encourage everyone, Alpha, to go watch my show from this past Friday, Geopolitics with Ghost on the Badlands Rumble channel. And I watched like 80% of the 60 Minutes interview that Kushner and Wickoff did this past week, which most people are just watching little 2-minute clips or 1-minute clips that are making the rounds. There is so much signal in that interview that was very significant, where you have Kushner laughing at Bibi Netanyahu, laughing in his face, laughing about this moment all over again. And here I took a screenshot of it. This is the moment at 47 seconds of that 2-minute clip that RT put up that made the rounds. This is the moment that the audience is booing Bibi Netanyahu. And look at Wickoff's face, look at Kushner's face, look at Ivanka's face. They're laughing at Benjamin Netanyahu. So anyone who thinks that these people are like puppets of Netanyahu, they're laughing at him while the world is laughing at him, while the Israeli people are booing him. And that's just signal to me. So jump ahead to 2 Mondays ago, and Trump went to the Knesset and gave that speech. And again, people focusing on the wrong stuff, Alpha. They focused on the part. I want to play this clip from Judging Freedom with Colonel McGregor with Judge Napolitano, and it's going to include the moment, the part where he talks about Miriam Adelson and how, like, are you more loyal to Israel or are you more loyal to the United States? I don't know, but you wouldn't answer. But that kind of tells me you're more loyal to Israel. That's Trump throwing this woman under the bus, right? Listen to what Colonel McGregor says. Colonel McGregor was one of Trump's top military advisors at the end of his first term, when everyone speculates that maybe devolution may have been implemented. Let's listen to what McGregor says here.
That might mean Israel, I must say.
Thought it was reprehensible that he would be joking about that he would recount it, that he would tell the world her supposed wealth, which is an extraordinary number, but nobody's business.
Well, I remember that Miriam's husband was the one who called Donald Trump and begged him to talk to John Bolton, urged him to consider John Bolton for the job as National Security Advisor. And up until that point, President Trump had refused to meet with the man. He didn't like Bolton, didn't like anything about him, and didn't want him around. But Allison said, please, Donald, please talk to him. He's a good man. Well, that's how we got John Bolton.
That I'd have to go fact check myself, but I'm pretty sure that episode of Napolitano was the day that Bolton was arrested. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that it was either the day Bolton was arrested or a few days before he was arrested. But McGregor is bringing everybody's attention to the fact that John Bolton was made it into the Trump administration 1.0 because of Sheldon Adelson, right? And John Bolton wouldn't speak to the man until Sheldon Adelson told him to. And again, people are going to say, well, that must mean that Trump is their puppet. Or Trump is drafting, as we like to talk about on Badlands, drafting like a NASCAR racing where you get behind the car in front of you and you conserve your energy by drafting off their energy, their momentum. I mean, and now John Bolton has been arrested and indicted for essentially what Edward Snowden did. And what Bolton said Edward Snowden, by the way, should be executed as a traitor.
Crazy, ironic, isn't it?
Yeah. So it's like, I mean, if you think this is all just happening, like we're just stumbling ass backwards into these coincidences of events, I mean, okay, then maybe it is the providence of God. Maybe God is great and God just has this plan, and I certainly wouldn't dismiss that aspect of it. But I also think that God works through the agency of men, and it requires good men to carry out God's will. So read into that as you will. Now, the more significant moment that nobody talked about was when Trump went to Egypt. He left the Knesset. Everyone was focused on the Knesset and what he was doing in the Knesset. He went to Egypt and did the more significant thing was the peace deal. The peace deal in Egypt was absolutely one of the most significant moments of Trump's current presidency, was this moment in Egypt. And this was a really funny situation because, number one, you had a few things that happened that, again, nobody will talk about. All these European leaders, that's the Pakistani prime minister speaking. That's the only person who got up and spoke besides Trump, because Trump was like, I want you to get up and speak. And I wish I had the sound playing. We're not going to listen to what his comments, but he's basically crying, talking about how much he loves Donald Trump and how great Donald Trump is and how Donald Trump's the only person who could have done this. There's no other person capable with the charisma and the personality to have brought all these Muslim leaders together and get the Muslim world on the same page. At the same time, Trump is sitting there throughout the speech because these are all European leaders behind them. And he's like, why are all of you up here? Who told you to stand up here? Like, I don't understand why y'all are up here, but fine, stand up here. You look like a bunch of dumbasses. All of the important Arab Muslim leaders are sitting down in the seats, and Trump's calling them out and pointing to them and saying how much he loves them and how they're all great friends. But it's the European NATO leaders who felt the need to go stand behind him on stage. They have nothing to do with any of this. It's a lot of signal there. Netanyahu, the two people who aren't here, three people who aren't here. Netanyahu's not here. MBS from Saudi Arabia is not here. That's intentional because I don't think Saudi Arabia wants to be involved optically. Now, he did send Faisal bin Farhan, his foreign minister, who I think is one of the most important diplomats in the world aside from Sergei Lavrov. And he did send, and we also, so he did send, I'm sorry, Faisal bin Farhan, but I don't think MBS wants to be seen optically until the state of Palestine is recognized as a nation by Israel. That's the next thing we're going to see happen. And he's scheduled, by the way, to come to the White House sometime in November. I think it's November 9th. So we're going to get MBS in the White House with Trump in the next couple of weeks. It might even happen when we're maybe in GART. I gotta go check. I have to go check the calendar. That's going to be amazing. The third person who wasn't there was MBZ, Mohammed bin Zayed from the UAE. The UAE has been the most important strategic ally from the Arabs to Israel since 2020, since the signing of the Abraham Accords. MBZ refused to be there, not because of Gaza, but because of Netanyahu. Netanyahu, actually, he wasn't invited initially. Then Trump at the last minute was like, all right, why don't we bring Netanyahu? And Netanyahu's coalition did not want him to go. Because they hate this whole peace deal. And then Erdogan from Turkey was circling overhead in Egyptian airspace and said, I'm not landing my plane and I'm not coming. And Erdogan is, we've learned over the past 2 weeks, very critical to this whole peace deal. He said, I'm not coming if Netanyahu's coming. So it's either him or me, you pick. And they were like, all right, well, obviously Netanyahu's not coming then. So, and then Hamas wasn't there. So they signed like one of the most important peace deals of the modern era, right? The peace deal between Israel and Hamas. And the two parties who are in the deal aren't even there. Israel's not there. Hamas isn't there. I thought that was a lot of signal. But this was a really, like, I did the same thing I did with the 60-minute interview on my show. Is I watched this entire speech, went through, gave commentary. There's a lot of signal from Trump in this. I thought it was a great moment. Okay, so then like let's kind of jump through from there. You then get Kushner and Wickoff going to Israel to make sure that this thing gets implemented, right? On the heels of that, you get JD Vance. JD Vance goes there, and I'm a little disappointed in how JD Vance handled this moment. But JD Vance, as he's flying across the Atlantic in Air Force 2 or whatever, Air Force 1, whichever one it was, the Knesset holds a vote, and they hold two votes. And the votes were basically to annex the West Bank. Now they're considered symbolic votes because there's no teeth behind the passage of the bills. They don't actually like grant any executive order to do anything. It's just this symbolic, we are ready to assume sovereignty as a government over the West Bank as soon as the executive actions are taken to do so. They have already militarily occupied it since 1967. But that was seen as a huge insult to JD Vance. Like they were throwing the middle finger up to JD Vance. And here's how JD Vance handles that as he's leaving Israel and he's asked about this. Here's how he handles it.
West Bank, sorry,
yeah, go ahead. We'll do, yeah.
The West Bank vote yesterday that took place while you were in the country.
Oh, yeah, that was weird. I was sort of confused by that. Now, I actually asked somebody about it, and they told me that it was a symbolic vote, some symbolic vote to recognize or a symbolic vote to annex the West Bank. I mean, what I would say to that is when I asked about it, somebody told me that it was a political stunt, that it had no practical significance. It was purely symbolic. I mean, look, if it was a political stunt, it was a very stupid political stunt, and I personally take some insult to it. The West Bank is not going to be annexed by Israel. The policy of the Trump administration is that the West Bank will not be annexed by Israel. That will continue to be our policy. And if people want to take symbolic votes, they can do that. But we certainly weren't happy about it. Thank you.
So I mean, I'm glad that he says all that. I'm glad he says that it was stupid, it was insulting, it was disrespectful, and what the West Bank isn't going to be annexed. But you know, I think he should have been a little more stern in his condemnation of it. Personally, I mean, watching it back for like the third or fourth time, maybe it wasn't as maybe he didn't handle it as poorly as I thought.
He could have made a very simple response as they can understand that they did a symbolic vote, but if they try to do anything more than that, our response won't be symbolic. Something that drives a definitive line of, you know, FAFO.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, all right, be like that. If it's symbolic, then it's stupid. And at least he says that, but it's, you know, they were doing that to insult JD Vance. Okay. So it's just important for everyone to understand that. He also goes and visits the sepulcher, which we don't have time to get into right now, but Matt Arrett and I have talked about this. There's a lot of history there with like the Christian church. There are multiple churches there. There's the Greek, I believe it's the Greek Orthodox Church. There's a few others. I want to say it's the Greek Orthodox Church, the Sepulcher Church, that is the #1 landowner in Israel. They actually, because they've been there for whatever 1,000 years, they actually lease the land that the Knesset is on, and most of the Israeli government is built on top of. They lease that land to the Israeli government. The Jerusalem government, not the Israeli government, but the local government in Jerusalem, has frozen their bank accounts, and they're not allowed to like access their bank accounts now. They've imposed taxes on their lands for the first time in 1,000 years. All the Muslim occupations of the Holy Land, whether it was the Ottomans or the Caliphate or whoever else, these churches were never forced to pay taxes to them because the Muslims recognized that was wrong to tax lands that are holy sites, even if it's not their religion. They never taxed them. Only recently under the Netanyahu government, Israel has never taxed them because Israel recognized the same thing. Only recently under the Netanyahu government these past few years has the local government there been taxing them. That's very important. And then frozen their bank accounts because they refuse to pay the taxes. And now you have this is kind of jumping way ahead. We'll go back, but now Steve Bannon is saying maybe we need a 3-state solution where the third state is the Christian state of Jerusalem. And that would be really interesting if that ends up happening, that Jerusalem becomes its own like nation state and is sovereign from both Israel and Palestine. But there's a lot of signal coming from Bannon right there. Like Bannon, and remember, Bannon, I think, is critical. I think he is at the heart of a lot of like what Trump does and what Trump is doing. I think Bannon is the mouthpiece in a lot of ways for Trump. And I actually have a clip that I want to play of that. So let's play this. I have a lot of clips. It's going to be a lengthy. We won't play the whole thing, but I just want to hear him talk about this a little bit.
I'm inside his head. He's very upset with in the Middle East. Haratz, I'll put it up tomorrow. Netanyahu. I'm inside his head. He's very upset with my use of the word protectorate or client state or vassal state. He says that they're not, and they're a free partner, but people over there talking to Qatar, which is the Muslim Brotherhood, and Erdogan, who's going to be the security force in Gaza, and the United States team of Jared and Witkoff and Marco, Senator Secretary of State's over there, and the Vice President and others are dealing directly with the new it's a Palestinian state. I hope the evangelicals are writing this down. I hope the Israel First and Tel Aviv Levant. I take your number 2 person and write that down. That's a proto-Palestinian state. And Marco went over there today and just said, hey, there is no further development of the West Bank, and the West Bank's not going to be annexed by Israel, full stop. And we don't care what the Knesset says, because the Knesset tried to embarrass JD the other day and voted, to do it. People are not listening, and they need to listen. The Israel First crowd and the evangelicals that back the Israel First crowd, you guys brought this on. Oh, Bannon's so hard. He's so tough. He's so mean. Well, I'm just giving you the facts the way they is. This greater Israel project of Netanyahu blew up in his face by the president of these United States. And now you got what you got. And, they're saying, hey, Hamas is a minor player here. Erdogan, the Egyptians, the UAE, the Saudis, the people are going to provide the troops. Qatar are going to be writing big checks. And look, I got no love lost for Qatar. I think Qatar's the railhead of the Muslim Brotherhood. But hey, I'm just some schmendrick yelling into a microphone. But we got a problem over there. And part of the problem is there's many people that don't look. President Trump has a vision of how this is going to work. Jared Kushner did the Abraham Accords. It's kind of more of a business deal and diplomatic deal. His work to date, that's kind of the template. And the president's saying, hey, here's what we're going to do. So if you want to go do it on your own, then do it on your own. When I say do it on your own, no money, no arms, no nothing. If you're going to do it, Israel First crowd and the Greater Israel Project, which is, I believe, destroyed Israel. And this is why now you have to go to a 3-state solution. And one of those states has to be, wait for it, the Christian state of Jerusalem. We need a Christian state in the Holy Land. You just need it. Make sure 20, 25 years, 30 years from now.
And you can understand that statement right there probably triggered everybody in Netanyahu's government, his regime, more than anything said about the West Bank or anything like that. The idea that there's going to be a Christian state, because Bezalel Smotrich and Itamar Ben-Gvir hate Christians, hate them so much. They spit on them. Spit on us. They think that we are scum. They think that Jesus was a traitor, was a heretic, all that stuff. They say awful things about Christians. They are students of a guy named Meir Kahane, whose protege now, Binzi Gopstein, was arrested in 2015 and indicted on incitement charges because he called for the burning of every Christian church in Israel and the expulsion of every Christian from Israel. And he finally went to trial a few years ago. It took like 7 or 8 years to get him in trial. His defense attorney was Itamar Ben-Gvir, the current national security minister of Israel. So you have to understand, the people watching this, you have to understand how much the people around Netanyahu hate Christians. Whether Netanyahu actually does or not is a separate question, but the radicals that he's brought in, that he's opened up his war tent to and brought in, they hate Christians, and they have been very vocal about that throughout their political careers.
Well, and just to expand real quick on what you said too about Bannon and his connection, or at least access to a lot of this information that he makes statements from. I want to rewind the clock back a few years and remember the relationship between Bannon and Miles Guo, the multi-billionaire out of China that got arrested under Biden's administration, who, if anybody's, followed some of the shows that I've done about him with some of the people from his circle, that guy was dropping dimes on every part of the CCP infrastructure. And him and Bannon were like this. So Bannon's very aware of stuff that's going on because he does have that big picture. So when he comes out and makes a statement like the Christian state of Jerusalem, I think there's a there. Whatever that may be, there's a there.
Yeah, and I've been saying this since June 13th because Bannon, the one thing that I've always been like, come on, Bannon, is that he's never said a bad thing about Israel prior to June 13th. That was when they attacked Iran. And then Trump had to step in and stop that. And then him and Tucker came out, I think it was June 15th or June 16th, and did a joint show where they just kind of laid it all out there. They went anti-Israel, and he's been hard anti-Israel ever since. But, I think for years, Bannon's been talking about this stuff without actually naming them. He's been talking about the city of London. Like he just mentioned Qatar being the railhead of the Muslim Brotherhood. You and I did the show together where I explained that the actual railhead of the Muslim Brotherhood is MI6, which would be the city of London. But Qatar, of course, has been used as a hotbed, not only for the Muslim Brotherhood, but Hamas, CIA, MI6. I mean, all that stuff, Al Qaeda, all of them were coming and going out of Qatar for a long time. That was just a landing zone, I think, for a lot of that stuff. But we're going to get to Qatar in a minute. Now I want to jump to what you just kind of touched on, which is here's the boss now talking about the way JD Vance should have handled it. Trump says Israel's not going to do anything with the West Bank as U.S. fumes over annexation. But in the real headline is this one: Israel will lose all support from the U.S. if it annexes the West Bank, Trump warns. And now JD Vance probably didn't feel like he had the authority to say that. But I want to read the quote. He didn't want to step on Trump's toes, I'm sure. But here's what Trump said when he was asked about it. He said, quote, "It won't happen. It won't happen." Trump told Time, referring to annexation. Quote, "It won't happen because I gave my word to the Arab countries. And if you can't do that, and you can't do that now, we've had great Arab support. It won't happen because I gave my word to the Arab countries. It will not happen. Israel would lose all of its support from the United States if that happened." And then it said, it reminds you that last month he said, "I'm not allowing Israel to annex the West Bank. There's been enough. It's time to stop now." So, and this is what I have been saying, Alpha, for years now, is that Trump made a promise. I made the video with the gladiator theme music playing in the background. Trump made a promise to Mahmoud Abbas on May 3rd, 2017, that he was going to liberate Palestine. He did it in the Oval Office on camera. He was going to help. He was going to be the president to help Mahmoud Abbas specifically liberate Palestine from Netanyahu, from Israel. He made that promise, and I think I always believe he was going to keep his word on that, and that we are seeing that signal. By the way, going back to the Egyptian summit from 2 Mondays ago, Mahmoud Abbas wasn't allowed to go initially until Trump stepped in at the 11th hour and said, "Oh no, Mahmoud Abbas is coming. Mahmoud Abbas is going to be there." And then there was this great moment on camera on stage where Mahmoud Abbas walks up and hugs Trump, and they have their moment together, and they pose together for a picture. But initially, the people putting the meeting together were like, no, you can't come, Mahmoud Abbas. The Palestinian government can't come. So Hamas wasn't allowed to come, but Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority, they were allowed to come, only because President Trump said, of course Mahmoud Abbas is going to come. Of course he's going to be there. And that is the signal right there. That's the signal, the relationship between Trump and Mahmoud Abbas. And so let's go back to Rubio, because Rubio then comes in on the heels of JD Vance, and he's setting the stage. This is the day before Trump made those comments. He's setting the stage for what Trump just said, which was, "You're going to lose all support from us if you touch the West Bank." Rubio says Knesset's preliminary vote to annex threatens Trump's Gaza plan. He's like, if you do that, we're not going to support you anymore. Which, by the way, is a big pivot from Rubio 6 months ago, where he was vocally he was optically supporting the idea of Israel doing what it needed to do with Palestine. So now he's adopted Trump's position, and now we can kind of pivot into the Palestinian Authority's role in Gaza and Turkey's role in Gaza. And Rubio says Israel must be comfortable with troops with the countries that send troops. And so Rubio, I think, is sticking up for Israel a little bit here. Like he's saying that it says, asked in a press conference at the U.S. Civil Military Coordination Center whether Turkish troops would be deployed in the International Stabilization Force to be set up in the Strip, Rubio says, quote, "We haven't formed that force yet, so there's still work going on. Quote, obviously, as you put together this force, it'll have to be countries that Israel's comfortable with as well." He continues saying that there are a lot of countries that are expressing interest right now, adding he couldn't specify them. Quote, "I don't want to get into anything on who's being vetoed, who's not being allowed. Obviously, every member of this force has to be someone who has capability and willingness, but also someone that everyone's comfortable with, including Israel." He says, addressing reports that Israel told the U.S. That presence of Turkish troops in Gaza would be a red line for Jerusalem. All right, Alpha, let me explain to you my opinion, my theory on why it is going to be Turkey and it can't be anybody else. And this is something that I speculated a little bit before, but now I'm like certain that it has to be. Like I was thinking this up with Syria. You got to send Turkey into Syria to stop Israel because Israel's not going to touch Turkey. Why? Because they're part of NATO. If Israel attacks Turkey, that's Article 5. That's the exact same reason why you got to send Turkey into Gaza. Because if you send the Saudis into Gaza, if you send the Qataris into Gaza, and I'm sure you'll have Qatari and Saudi special forces and Jordanian special forces in Gaza probably as well, Egyptian special forces in Gaza as well. But the reason that I think you send Turkey in there is because they are NATO. And if the IDF gets cute and starts to attack them, they're going to, that is the ultimate fuck around find out, because then the entire continent of Europe, Canada, and the United States is at war with Israel the next morning. So that's why I think it's going to be Turkey. And if you haven't noticed, Trump has been pumping Erdogan's tires pretty significantly over the past month. I'm talking about how Erdogan's his boy, Erdogan's his guy. He loves Erdogan. Here's Erdogan 2 days ago, says Israel must be forced to abide by ceasefire through sanctions and arms embargo. He's been one of the most like vicious in his attacks on Israel, at least through rhetoric over the past 2 years. And I will remind you that Israel Katz, who is now the defense minister in Israel, but prior to this, while he was the foreign minister, which is supposed to be the chief diplomat, he said he threatened Erdogan and said, "You saw what happened to Saddam Hussein. Maybe you'll be next." Yeah, that was when he was like the chief diplomat. Now he's the defense minister. Now he's in charge of the IDF. So you know that just to give everyone like a taste of how the relationship between Erdogan and the Netanyahu government is. But I think this is going to be something that Trump's going to force on them, where Trump is going to say, no. It's going to be Turkey because Turkey is NATO and we want NATO in Gaza. That's going to be the justification, with the Saudis and the Qataris and the Jordanians and the Egyptians also collaborating because they are crucial partners. Like they want Arabs on the ground, and the Turks, of course, are not Arabs. But the Turks are NATO, and that's really important. So now I think what we should do is we should play this clip of Netanyahu that you and I were talking about before the show. So here's Netanyahu from, again, 2 days ago, 3 days ago, maybe, responding to this. And I think this is it's in Hebrew, so I'm going to play it, and I'm going to read the subtitles to you. It says, President Trump, this is somebody asking him a question. President Trump said earlier in an interview 2 years ago, Israel will not annex the West Bank because I gave my word to the Arab states. He said that if they do, they will lose American support. Are the Americans now dictating policy to Israel? So now here's Netanyahu's response. Netanyahu says, that's what you always say. I deeply appreciate President Trump's support, both in wartime actions, in my decision to enter Gaza City, and in his efforts to rally the Arab world to rescue and free our hostages through our military pressure and his diplomatic support. And we brought back 20 living hostages, something no one believed would happen. And now, in the position we are taking, including tonight's conversation with Marco Rubio and earlier with Vice President Vance, to advance the goals of demilitarizing Gaza and dismantling Hamas and its weapons, which are straightforward objectives for us. So that's what matters. I think there is something significant about the cooperation between us. Wait, that was really fast. There's something significant about the cooperation between us, between partners, which I believe is a tremendous blessing for the state of Israel. We are an independent nation. So he's talking about we're great partners and everything, and I appreciate their support, but we're an independent nation. We're gonna do what we need to do. That's him kind of thumbing his nose at the idea that Trump is going to tell them whether or not they're going to annex the West Bank. The stage is being set, Alpha. The stage is being set for a very significant showdown between Trump and Netanyahu, because Trump's the only one who can really, get in the ring with Netanyahu, so to speak. Everyone in the world recognizes that at this point. I think world leaders around the world have all recognized that. Putin has said that. Putin, by the way, has Trump's back. Putin was working with Trump to get several hostages back that were of Russian nationality. And so I think that with that whole situation, you're going to see a very, very tense standoff between Erdogan, Trump, and the Arabs on one side, and Netanyahu and whoever has his back, which is going to be a whole collection of people from Mark Levin and Laura Loomer to whoever in the world, maybe Mark Carney, Canada, a few others who are going to back Netanyahu here. It's going to be interesting. Some bankers, others. Now, that kind of brings us to, we can talk about what's happening right now with current events, because I'm sure everybody has noticed online that Qatar has become public enemy number one among the Zionists, the people who are paid money to post on behalf of the state of Israel. Here is Trump. So Trump is in Asia right now. He's in Malaysia. So here's him dancing with these Malaysian dancers, of course, just Trump doing his thing. Malaysia is very significant because it is the Strait of Malacca. There are 3 choke points in the world, Alpha, when it comes to maritime, ocean-bound trade. The 3 choke points are the Panama Canal, which everyone's familiar with, the Suez Canal in Egypt, which everyone's become familiar with. That's the Red Sea, right? And the Strait of Malacca. The Strait of Malacca runs through Malaysia and Indonesia, the 2 islands that form the Strait of Malacca. And basically, I think it's 35% of global trade goes through the Straits of Malacca, because it's all of Southeast Asia. To access Southeast Asia and the giant island chains and Australia and all that, you have to, from the Indian Ocean, you have to go through the Straits of Malacca, China, all that. And so he's in Malaysia right now signing deals, which we'll probably talk about next week. But the other island there is Indonesia. And Indonesia, everyone was wondering, well, why is this Indonesian guy involved in all these Middle East meetings that Trump was having with the Qataris, the Turks, the Pakistanis, the Arabs, to figure out this 20-point peace deal? Randomly, you had the Indonesian president in there. And they're like, well, okay, the Pakistan guy, I can get that. It's the Middle East. It's a little distance from Palestine. But why is Indonesia in here? Well, Indonesia is a Muslim country, and it also is one of the 2 islands that forms the Straits of Malacca. So global trade runs through Indonesia, and now Trump's in Malaysia. Now, on the way to Malaysia, Trump picks a place to refuel, and the place that he picks, of course, is Qatar. And so you have this really great moment, and we got to watch this video of Trump, and then we'll wrap this up. This really great moment of Trump meeting with Sheikh Tamim Al Thani of Qatar, the Emir of Qatar. He's sitting on the plane in Air Force One. Tamim, who Trump's been friends with for a long time, I'll explain that in a minute. He comes to the airport, gets on Air Force One to hang out with Donald Trump while they're refueling the plane. And here's the moment between him and Tamim.
I'm starting because you're in my country, so I want to welcome you, Mr. President. And as soon as I found out that he's coming to refuel, I said, I'm not going to allow him to take off unless I come and say hello to him. So thank you very much, Mr. President, and it's always great seeing you. I'm starting because
And then
you're
Trump
my
goes
country,
on to
so-
talk about. Let me see if I have that other clip. Trump goes on to talk about. Yeah, here, right
As soon
here.
as I found out that he's coming to say hello.
Well, the Emir is one of the great rulers of the world, not just the Middle East. He's beloved and respected by his country. I don't know what's more important, being beloved or respected. Both. You have a preference? Because you have both. You're one of the few. And the Prime Minister has been my friend and a friend to the world. And we've done a lot together in the last, especially in the last year. What we've done is incredible. Peace to the Middle East. And they were a very big factor in it. So I just want to thank you. I was thinking, we're landing here, we're going to fuel up, and it's such an honor to have you on the plane. I know you don't do this often.
Never, first time.
I don't think he's ever done this, actually. But it's an honor. We have a great, he's a great ally, they are a great ally, and these are two great men. And as long as we're together and you have those cameras rolling, I want to just say we express our thanks. And you have a safe Middle East right now. And you're going to keep it that way for a long time. For a very long time. Thank you very much, everyone.
Yeah. So this guy on the left is Tamim. He's the leader of Qatar, of the House Al Thani. The Al Thani family, just like the Saudis, the Al Thani family has ruled Qatar since the early 1800s, which is much longer than the Saudis have ruled Saudi Arabia. This guy on the right is one of his cousins, who's the prime minister. These two together have been absolutely critical in putting together all these peace deals that Trump has been doing, including, by the way, going after the cartels in South America. You and I were talking about that before the show. There was a meeting that happened last month between the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, and the head of the Gulf Clan cartel, which is one of the biggest cartels in Colombia that nobody talks about. Many of these guys, thousands of these guys, have been arrested over the past year and extradited to the United States. And they met last month, right after Petro went to the UN and gave a speech where he basically said half the people in DC were on the cartel's payroll. And said, nobody has arrested and extradited more cartel members than me to the United States than I have. And I went and fact checked that, and he's absolutely right. Over the past year, my mind was blown. The leaders, the founder of the Medellin cartel, the Sonora cartel, like all these cartels, even the cartels in Mexico, this guy's going after. So I think this whole thing going on in Venezuela and Colombia is totally theater. And Trump is actually working with those guys, and the Qataris are at the center of that negotiation with dismantle, because the meeting that he had last month in Qatar was about dismantling the cartel and ceasing their operations completely in Colombia. That's what the meeting was about. And nobody reported on that, Alpha. Like nobody. I only found out about it because I went and looked into it like 2 days ago. And so the last thing that I want to show you, and then we'll shut it down, is this video. This is from September 2017 at the White House. Okay. There's Tamim right there on the left. Tamim and Trump met at the sword dance, like they had a meeting at the sword dance on May 20th, 2017, a few months before this. A month later, MBS becomes the crown prince of Saudi Arabia and immediately declares war on Qatar. And then the entire Arab Middle East goes to war with Saudi Arabia, with the backing of Donald Trump against Qatar. And so the context of this meeting is basically the Qataris are the bad guys, and the whole Middle East is coming after them. And listen to what Trump says.
Well, thank you very much. It's my great honor to be with the Emir of Qatar, and we've been friends a long time. People don't realize that. We know each other for a long time. And we are right now in a situation where we're trying to solve a problem in the Middle East, and I think we'll get it solved. I have a very strong feeling that it will be solved pretty quickly. But we're talking also trade and many other things, and we have had a tremendous relationship for the last short period of time, especially since our meeting in Saudi Arabia, which I think was an epic and very important, really a very historic meeting. And now we want to make the most of it by getting things settled. But we also want to continue trade and many other things. So we look forward to our meetings and our individual meetings and for many years to come.
Thank you very much. Well, Mr. President, thank you very much for receiving me. I'm very happy to be with you here. And as you mentioned, the relationship between the United States of America and Qatar is a very strong relationship, historical relationship. And since we met in Riyadh, which was, as you said, a very, very important meeting, and we signed those agreements, we were the first country to respond to this agreement, and we signed this MOU of counterterrorism. So we really appreciate this relationship, Mr. President. We have a lot to talk about: trade, military cooperation, security cooperation. So thank you very much. And as you said, Mr. President, we have a problem with our neighbors, and your interference will help a lot, and I'm sure that with your interference, hopefully we can find a solution for this problem. We've always said that we're very open for dialogue, and we'll always be open for dialogue.
We will get it solved. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Okay, so the background here, this is how serious this got. While they were having this meeting, like in 2017, MBS, the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, put out an RFP, a request for proposal from the largest construction companies in the world to dig a canal between Saudi Arabia and Qatar and turn Qatar into an island. Qatari ships were not allowed to embark, like were not allowed to land at any port in the Middle East. Egypt, UAE, Saudi Arabia, I believe Kuwait, and I think even Bahrain, the little island that is near Qatar, weren't allowed to land at any of those places for like 4 years. This situation was not resolved, but until the week Trump left office. That week, January 15th, 2021, with all of the crazy election stuff happening, with all of the craziness happening around Trump in the White House, Trump got a peace deal signed between this guy, Tamim, and MBS, and that ended the war between Saudi Arabia and Qatar. And from there, they were basically allies moving forward. What's interesting, Alpha, is when he says we've been friends a long time, what he's referring to is in 2005, when Chris Christie, the then Attorney General of New Jersey, put Charles Kushner in prison for 2 years for like election finance violations or something like that.
And this is Jared Kushner's father, for those that aren't tracking.
Yeah, Jared Kushner's father gets prosecuted by a ardent Zionist. I mean, Chris Christie is a lapdog of Israel. Charles Kushner is a Jewish, a lifelong servant of the Jewish diaspora. And then Jared, of course, has to quit his job and like come run the family business, his father's company, makes a few real estate investments. And then the real estate the economy crashes. And basically he's looking at bankruptcy. The Kushner family is looking at bankruptcy. They were in real trouble. That 666 building that everybody speculates like means Jared is like a Satan worshiper or whatever. Like that was one of the buildings he bought. None of the Jewish diaspora came to his aid. None of Israel came to his aid. None of the Zionists came to his aid. It was Donald Trump that came to his aid. And what he did is he called his friend Tom Barrack, the Lebanese Christian man who is now the ambassador to Turkey and special envoy to Syria. And Tom Barrack, who had lots of friends in Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, called Tamim and the guys in Qatar and said, "Hey, we need help. We have, Ivanka's boyfriend or husband at the time, I don't know which one they were, is in real trouble and needs some financial support." And these guys come in and they buy up portions of the building to bail out Kushner. So Kushner has known the Qataris since like 2007 because they stepped in when Netanyahu, who was purportedly a lifelong friend of Charles Kushner, refused to step in. Nobody from Israel steps in and bails him out. It's the Qataris who step in and bail out Jared Kushner. And that's why Donald Trump knows him so well, through Tom Barrack, who's now his special envoy to Syria and ambassador to Turkey. And the agreement that they're talking about when Trump says it was a very historic day, that day in Riyadh when you and I met talking about the sword dance, what he's referring to is that Qatar was the first country anywhere, including Saudi Arabia, to sign an agreement with the United States, a counterterrorism joint task force agreement, where Qatar was basically going to give all the intel they had on the terrorist organizations operating in the Middle East to take them all down, and work with the Trump administration to dismantle every terrorist network in the Middle East. And that was Tamim doing that. And that is how I think we figured out where ISIS was everywhere. Because remember, it was Qatar, it was the bad actors in Qatar, the UAE, and Saudi Arabia who funded ISIS in the first place back in 2011, 2012. And so they knew where all the bodies were buried. They called it the Syria file is what it was called. $2 trillion invested into creating ISIS.
And that would be General Raising Cain that took down ISIS in that very expedient timeline that many said would take years and years and years, and he did it under 6 months. And why is that important? Because he was on the plane with Trump as he went to that meeting that you were talking about when we started this show. It's just these relationships cannot be ignored.
Yeah, and who was the other person who helped them take down ISIS in 2019? Putin. And we also have an anecdote there, because Burning Bright, who works at Badlands with us, his cousin was a pilot, a bomber pilot, right, in the U.S. military, who didn't really buy into this whole like Putin's a good guy narrative, but he admitted to Burning Bright that when he was flying the planes that were bombing ISIS back in 2019 in Syria, and Burning Bright was talking to him and realized that he told Burning Bright, well, yeah, we were getting the coordinates. We were getting the coordinates from the Russian military. The Russian military was giving us the coordinates. Here's the coordinate to go bomb. And then we would fly over and bomb those coordinates. And that was the ISIS camp. So it was Russia giving the intel to the U.S. military to take out ISIS. And I'm pretty sure a lot of this intel was all coming out of this agreement that was signed with Tamim in May of 2017. So this whole thing is connected, and it goes all the way back to 20 years ago with Charles Kushner, who is now the ambassador to France under the Trump administration. Like, all this stuff is connected. And Jared Kushner on 60 Minutes this is what he said. One of the reasons you should go watch this show I did on Friday is him and Witkoff said this. They said, they didn't say nobody at the State Department. I said this. Nobody at the State Department or the CIA has the ability to pick up the phone and call all these leaders. Tamim, MBS, MBZ, King Abdullah, Erdogan, Sisi in Egypt, and Netanyahu, and they'll answer the phone. Like, they have their cell phone numbers. They can ring them, and they're going to answer the phone, as opposed to getting some deputy foreign minister. And they can coordinate in real time with all these guys. They knew that they were going to accept this deal. They said they were getting daily reports, daily briefings from the CIA that were telling them that Hamas was not going to accept the deal and Hamas was going to betray them. And they said all the reports they were getting from MBS, MBZ, Tamim, Erdogan, and Sisi were that, no, Hamas is on board. Hamas is going to do it. Like, Hamas is with us now. Like, we have Hamas under control. And they said the CIA and the State Department was lying to them every single morning, telling them the complete opposite. And they said, you know who we decided to trust? We decided to trust our friends in the Middle East instead of the State Department.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
There's a sovereign alliance, folks, that you guys gotta learn about. Kirill Dmitriev just met with Congresswoman Anna Luna.
Yep.
And they're talking about actually having Congress meet with, what do they call it? The Duma?
Yeah, the Duma is their Congress, yeah.
Yeah, so that's interesting timing around all that. Folks, I saw someone that's watching on YouTube, because we are streaming to YouTube because we got the channel back again, said, now I'm no mathematician, but 20 minutes. It did 20 minutes ago. We missed last week, so we had to make up for that because we had some things going on. So I'm gonna fire off here and give Ghost the opportunity for people that want the more in-depth information on a lot of stuff that we talked about last night. You kind of hinted to some things you do. Let everybody know where can they find you and the different things you're involved with.
Go to the Badlands Media Rumble page. I do Geopolitics with Ghosts. It's like my show where it's just me basically ranting for 2 hours about this stuff. Basically what I've been doing here. But I'm also on Badlands Daily. I'm on Breaking History. I'm on the Book of Trump. And then I write for the Badlands Media Substack every day in the Badlands News Brief. So I do like short takes on all these news stories. But those are the best places to find me. And then on X, goes to BPH.
And there you have it, folks. So we'll catch you guys next week. The Middle East in 20 minutes.
I told you it wasn't going to be 20 minutes today.
All right, you guys. God bless. Enjoy your football. Spend time with the family. We'll catch you next time.